That's right, folks. Another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast, and it's not just any episode, folks. It is the first Week 1 Sunday live start-sit show starting right now on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. We're going to answer 2 hours of all your start-sit questions. Tune in as we break down all the injuries, key changes in 2024, and got a little weather for you, too, as well. All this and more starting right now on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. All right, my first co-host today, helping me as always, part of the original Quad Box, one of the original Quad Fathers. It's Derek Favre. You can follow him, Derek_Favre on Twitter. What's going on, Derek?
Morning, Bobby. How you doing? We're back to week one.
Oh, baby. 2 hours together every Sunday, huh? You excited or what?
Oh, this is great. This is a long time coming.
I know. We took a break. Like we do sub shows for like 15, 20 minutes, but now we're going to be together for 2 hours. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Answered start sits. Derek, I asked you a question before the show started. What's like the one thing you're watching for this week? Changes, player, coaches, what's up? What's the number one thing you're looking for this week?
Yeah, there's a lot of playing time questions coming into this season, especially in the running back rooms. There's a lot of, timeshares, how are these going to break out? Is it going to be, 2/3 one running back, 1/3 another? Is it going to be more of a 50-50 split? So there's a lot of these questions which, are going to impact our fantasy teams and our start-sit, debates, frankly. So a lot of that, I think in many cases, a lot of that will get worked out this week. At least they'll give us a direction to head in and as we move forward. So I'm looking for some of those questions to be answered.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. All right. Let's bring in my second co-host today. Obviously, this is a new face. He's a man who's been around, like he's in the behind the scenes. He's been like an advocate of Razzball, retweeting, constantly helping us out. We love every second. The man is Dave Cruz. Dave, how you doing this morning, man? Your first Sunday live. You excited to answer some start-sit questions?
Absolutely. I'm ready for week one. This is what we've wanted to kill spring and summer for. So, we just want to skip ahead next year to autumn. So,
yeah, I can't agree more. Even though it's like 100 degrees here right now, and I'm not happy about this like late summer thing we got going on in California, but you know what? I'm good with it. It's week one. It's Sunday. Now, Dave, I did ask you pre-show, like what's the one player or situation you're going to be watching the most in week one?
Well, the game of the week to me is Arizona and Buffalo. I think that's going to be I'm emptying my benches to play all of the guys in that game if I can.
Question: is that like a Khalil Shakir? Even you want it all?
I'll take Shakir just to see. I think with him, he's probably the guy that Josh Allen has played with the most. So at least early on, until they get acclimated, I think he's going to be one of the guys that Allen leans on in the passing game.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I actually have Shakir in a few leagues. So listen, just asking for a friend. I was very curious to see what the actual excitement there is. But that is a fun game. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills are going through a lot of changes in the second with their wide receiving core. The Cardinals were surprisingly good last year. I know their record necessarily didn't say so, but dealing with the Kyler Murray situation, a changing coaching staff, I think their offense played a lot better than people thought with Josh Dobbs early on last year. I know personal favorite of mine helped me out at the Superflex League for a little bit, so I was actually very happy until the bottom fell out of that one. But honestly, I think there's a couple things. I think the first thing I'll be kind of watching is like what in 2023 will roll over into 24. Like a lot of things change, but sometimes the same coach, same relative players, can we still attack those matchups? Like we have the slot first wide matchup tool that we talk about all the time. The secondaries constantly change, but are there going to be huge changes like the Titans, for example, where they have a new coaching staff, a couple new corners? Are they going to still be a matchup to exploit? So I'm really excited to kind of see all that. Dave, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, about Tennessee, they've got 4 new guys on their front 7, and Ernest Jones just got there, 2 weeks ago? So I think they're going to be a tough front 7 to run on later in the year, but I think now is a time to attack them in fantasy. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? So I mean I've talked about this a lot too. Like communication wise, offensive line play and secondary play, you need mostly continuity. Like that's where the continuity matters the most. Front seven stuff, you're probably right. It does take a little time to get acclimated there. I just always week one, I don't like to assume anything. I don't want to assume that the same Titans, they're not the same. New coaching, new defensive player personnel. So it's hard to roll over 23 to 24 in those scenarios. But there's situations where you have like New Orleans, for example, that have the same coach, pretty much the same secondary. I know Lattimore's healthy and hopefully he's going to be back to full strength this offseason. But, I really like the slot matchup this week for Adam Thielen in that game. Deontay Johnson might be more of a fade because of the better outside corners. And we know kind of how Dennis Allen has coached over the last few years. So there's a little bit more of like confidence in maybe starting a Thielen versus maybe an uncertainty in that Titans game. But good call out on that as well. We do have some questions rolling in. We always want to remind everybody, first off, we appreciate you joining the show. We will answer your start sit questions in order they are received. By the way, at 9 o'clock, we will have a weather update from Derek. We'll also have injury updates as well and defensive changes that you need to know into week one at 9. So make sure you join, watch that as well. If you have a question, pop in here. We always appreciate it. If you want to be a super chatter, get your question answered right away. That will jump you to the top. And we also will be donating 10% of all of our super chats to Good Sports, the charity organization that helps provide sporting equipment to underprivileged communities. So we love that as well. Derek, anything you want to say before we start?
Yeah, for those new to the show, Bobby's on the West Coast, so for us East Coasters, that's 12 o'clock. We're in all those the injuries and the weather reports are going to be at 12 o'clock. So yeah, Bobby's on the West Coast, so we give him a leeway for that.
Sorry, it's early. I forget I have to say multiple coasts. That's my fault, but that's why I got Derek here. That's why we have an East Coast representative at all times. We do appreciate that. Let's get into some questions here, fellas, and we'll talk through these really quick. Derek, I'm going to hop over to you real quick on this one. Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for joining. By the way, our first question of the season. We appreciate you jumping on, my friend. Full PPR, pick 2, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Javonte Williams, and Calvin Ridley. Just for the sake of the question, we're going to assume it's a flex question as well, so we can add in a running back or 2 wide receivers. So, Derek, over to you first. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm going to start with Javonte. He's my number 19 running back. The game script there, I think, is going to play in his favor as well, trying to keep the Seahawks off the field. Seahawks are heavily favored, so the Broncos are going to need to keep that in check, and Javonte probably is the beneficiary there. So I'm going to go Javonte for sure. The other one is close for me, McLaurin versus Deontay, and I'm going to lean McLaurin. I've got them both ranked just about right next to each other in my rankings this week. But with the Commanders, traveling, new quarterback, there is a lot of question on that. But figure the rookie is going to be relying on the playmaker that he has, and that's Terry McLaurin. You mentioned Thielen. Thielen is a good play for Carolina, and I'm on that as well. In fact, he was part of my DFS selections this week was Adam Thielen. And so I'm just giving a little slight fade to Deontay, and I'll lean Terry McLaurin. So McLaurin and Williams for me in this one.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm going to be boring and say the same. I like McLaurin a lot in this matchup against Tampa Bay. Their defense hasn't been quite the same. We'll see if they shore that up some this year. My problem with Deontay Johnson is I'm worried he might be shadowed by Lattimore, and that will probably take him away. Like you guys, I like Thielen more in that matchup. Calvin Ridley, I don't like the Tennessee offense that much right now, and I think they're probably going to lean a little bit more on the running game. So give me McLaurin, and Javonte Williams is one of my bounce back players this year. So I'm going to take Javonte Williams in that.
So I think Javonte really, to me, too, is probably the best play of all these guys. McLaurin, obviously, Jamel Dean, there's been discussions with Charlton Davis, now gone, that Jamel Dean might be looking to shadow. We'll see what Todd Bowles does there. I don't know if that's actually going to be accurate or not, but there is shakeup in that Tampa Bay secondary. So there could be something for McLaurin, especially because right now there isn't a number 2 on the offense. And so the one thing that does worry me is that Cliff Kingsbury makes it easy to take away your top option because he does not move his guys around a lot. He doesn't use like McLaurin in the slot a bunch. He's not going to do that. So obviously, if they want to shadow him with Jamel Dean, they can. So I do worry there a lot. Deontay, same thing with Marshawn Lattimore. The Saints in general, even without Lattimore last year, were very good against outside receivers. And then Calvin Ridley, Chicago was also pretty good last year in the secondary in the sense of taking away outside receivers. I actually am going to lean here Calvin Ridley and Javonte. I do think that without the Andre Hopkins potentially playing in this game, I think that Calvin Ridley will get peppered with some targets. I think Ridley last year played okay for the fact the guy missed over a year of football. So I think he's going to be ready to go. I think he'll get peppered with targets in that one. All right, let's jump down to the next question, folks. And let's do we got PPR, Javonte Williams or David Montgomery from Zazan. What do you got here for Derek?
Yeah, this is a good one. We just heaped a lot of praise on Javonte, but then, we got to go back to what's projected to be the highest scoring game of the week, Lions at Rams. And, if you believe the Lions are going to come out and take advantage of that Rams, certainly a weakened defense and come to a big lead, then Montgomery has a big role in this game script, especially late in the game when you're chewing clock, maybe some goal line work. So, and getting back to my original discussion at the very beginning, as far as timeshares, we're not really sure yet what that timeshare of the running back is going to be there in Detroit. But, will that be close to 50-50? Will Montgomery be slightly above? Will he just be a little bit below 50%? I really don't know, but I'm there for it. I'm going Montgomery here in that PPR. And I'm looking for at least one touchdown. So even if you're in the prop game, a Montgomery anytime touchdown, I think is a nice one as well. So I'm going Montgomery here.
Dave?
Yeah, last year when the Lions played the Rams really sold out to stop the run. But they got burned in the passing game. And this year they've overhauled their defense. Aaron Donald retired. They just traded Ernest Jones, so it's a new defense. I think Javonte will have a bigger workload, but I like the offensive firepower in the Rams Detroit game. So I got to agree with Derek and say I'm probably going to take Montgomery there. He's certainly still going to be the goal line back, and I think they're probably still going to lean on him quite a bit. So I think he's probably going to have the better game today.
Yeah, I'm going to go D-Mon as well. I think the Lions at home, always a nice one for that, little feather in the cap. I think the Aaron Donald thing is ridiculously a huge thing. It's like that is a huge loss for the Rams. I think that the Lions at home will get it done. I think it'll be a fun game. I want a piece of that. Javonte, I like Javonte Williams, but they are on the road against Seattle. Mike, whatever. So how his defense looks. I mean, because of the 12th man. Javonte, maybe I'm good with this. The fact that next year we got from Josh. Clicking or am I clicking?
Yeah, I think that's you, Bobby.
All right, I'm clicking. All right, Josh, start Caleb or Dak Prescott. We have a 16 PPR team. Shane, Zeke, CD, DJ Moore, Njoku, Tank Dell. So it looks like he's looking for a quarterback question. Now, typically we want to be, a little cautious with the rookie, but Dak is on the road against the Cleveland Browns. That is a tough place to play, really, and the Browns have one in football, so maybe Caleb makes sense this week as they play the Tennessee Titans. But we just talked about all the changes in the secondary, new coach. But what's your thoughts here, Derek? Are you going Caleb or Dak?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say in a 16-man league, this is a hell of a roster. That they really put together a nice roster there, and because of that, I think this makes the risk a little less, a little less of a risk, frankly, on which quarterback to start, because you've got a lot of points, especially in the PPR. You got a lot of points here coming from your skill players. That even if you make a mistake with the quarterback, it's probably not going to drown your team because you've got a lot of points on the rest of the bench. So that being said, I'm going to go with Dak on this one. I don't like the matchup. In fact, I have a similar issue with one of my teams. I have Dak, but then I also have Jared Goff, and so that's an easy pick for me to start Goff over Dak. But in this case, I'm going to go Dak, and especially the fact that you have CeeDee Lamb. I like that stack, and so I think if Dallas is going to have a shot at winning this game. I do like Cleveland here, but if Dallas has a shot at winning this game, and I know it's on the road, and I know the Cowboys don't travel well, but I like that stack. I like him linking up with CeeDee early and often, probably for one touchdown for sure, and get that double points there on the touchdown. So give me Dak here. And again, I'm not that worried about my quarterback decision, because even if Caleb outscores him a little bit, I'm going into this matchup thinking that I'm safe. So give me that stack. I'd rather have that one than the Caleb DJ Moore stack. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, well, the only reason I would start Dak in this game is for the stack. But for me, that's just not enough. I'm worried about the new lineman the Dallas Cowboys have against one of the toughest defenses in the league on the road. I'm worried that Dak's going to basically be running around all day. I know it's Caleb Williams' first regular season game, but I do like what I saw out of him in the preseason. He looks ready to go. I think he's probably going to be one of the best number one picks we've seen in a decade. So I'm going to roll with Caleb Williams in this case.
Yeah, and sometimes, so by the way, if we haven't talked about it enough this offseason, we talked a little bit about our new tools over on Razzball.com, our home versus road, our split tool, our wins versus losses tool. Like, I know, like, we've been saying it a bunch, but you haven't checked it out yet. This is a prime example of why you should use this tool to make one of these decisions, right? If you go to our home versus away split tool and you look at Dak Prescott, he goes from at home last year, he averaged, let's say, 24.8 fantasy points at home and 16 on the road. So that is a huge difference. And then he's in Cleveland, of all places. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think the safer play is Caleb Williams. I think the other thing, too, is like with Caleb, I don't think we've ever seen a rookie with this level of talent have this good of weapons his first season. Like, I mean, we're talking a trio of wide receivers and probably a very good duo of tight ends, plus Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. He is loaded. So I actually have a little confidence there as well. So I'm going to go Caleb Williams. All right, Drew, jump down to the next question. Your half PPR start. We got Brandon Ayuk or Chuba Hubbard. Ayuk usually would be a slam dunk. He's got a tough matchup this week against the Jets. Also was a late entrant into the training camp. Could he be limited in some capacity? You got Chuba Hubbard basically replacing Jonathan Brooks as the starter, but he's got a tough matchup on the road against the Saints. What's your thoughts here, Derek?
Yeah, all the things you just said into account, I'm going to go Chuba Hubbard, and it's just frankly workload. The half PPR kind of skews it a little for me as well. Chuba's going to get the workload. He's involved in both the rushing and passing game. So I'll take maybe a couple extra points there versus Ayuk. I'm a little leery there. I'm sure he's going to be fine, but is he in full game shape? I worry about that anytime, especially a receiver, doesn't get the preseason work that they should. I worry about those soft tissue injuries or just frankly just not being or petering out, in the second half. So give me Chuba here, just specifically because of workload. But in a normal week, in a normal universe, it would be Ayuk in the slam dunk, but not today. It's going to be Chuba for me.
Yeah, IU coming back to the team late in the preseason just kind of turns me off a little bit. I know they can't limit everybody. CMC's dealing with some injuries, but and for IU the big thing is efficiency, and is that going to be there right away? For this week, I'm kind of tempted to fade him here. So yeah, I'm also going to go with Chuba Hubbard here. I think they're going to have to run quite a bit against the Saints. I'm very interested to see how that team looks with Dave Canales at the helm. Uh, you know, I'm a little bit excited for Bryce Young this year. So yeah, I like Chuba in this particular instance. 2 or 3 weeks down the road, it's going to be a different story.
Yeah, I would agree here on the fact that, so here's the other thing with this. Chuba last year against New Orleans was kind of boring. Like if you look at his stats, it was like 8 to 10 fantasy points in half PPR. Is he going to win you your week? No. Is he got a much safer floor? Yes. It's not like the Jets don't have one of the best secondaries in football with Gardner and Reed on the outside. So, and all the other things kind of factoring here. If it was full PPR, I'd probably just go Ayuk here. This is probably going to be a bad call, but I'm actually going to go Chuba for safety. If I felt like I needed a huge game, I would probably go Ayuk because I think Chuba is probably going to get you a very boring 10 fantasy points in half PPR. But it's a lot safer. The workload will be there. He will be riding as the number one there as well. All right, let's jump down to Official Savage, an oldie but goodie. What's up? How you doing?
Our buddy is back.
I love it. I love it. Good morning, fellas. Let's get that kicker report. By the way, Official Savage knows that I have made it a goal of mine to understand kickers and making sure we pick the best kickers. I promise you we'll have the best kicker this year. We honestly, last year we had some huge weeks, and this week my favorite kicker is the Rams kicker. Forget the kid's name off the top of my head, but he's a rookie.
Cardi.
He gets in Detroit. Cardi, there you go. Yeah, so I got him in all my teams this week. The Rams are a very good offense. They're playing against a good defense in Detroit. You always want that as a formula. But just in my analysis using last year's data, still very raw right now. But this is a matchup you want to exploit in a dome. That's why I love the Rams kicker this week. So, Official Savage, thank you for getting the kicker question going. That got the juices flowing for me as well. All right, Ronald McDonald, always a pleasure. Razzball fam, how you doing, man? We got half PPR, Devin Singletary, Christian Kirk, Javonte Williams. Now, this is kind of interesting right here. This is like these guys probably went all back-to-back in the draft. Very good questions here. The Giants have Minnesota this week. Christian Kirk and the Jags are facing the Miami Dolphins. And then Javonte Williams, we've covered a bunch today, obviously on the road against Seattle. Now, the one thing I will say about Miami, Jalen Ramsey's a little banged up now. Xavier Howard's no longer there. They had some shakeups in the secondary. So, Derek, what's your thoughts here about this one? Which one of these guys are you targeting?
Yeah, so first of all, let me distinguish between the running backs. I've got Javonte as my 19, running back 19, and I got Singletary as my running back 25. So between the two of them, I've got Javonte. And then when I compare it to Kirk, I've got Kirk as my wide receiver 25 as well. The game script there, I do like Jacksonville, Jacksonville passing game. There is some question marks coming into the season there. I do like it generally, but first week is a sure thing for me, and Javonte is closer to a sure thing, and at least providing a nice floor, maybe some upside than the other two. So give me Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I out of the three, Devin Singletary to me is an immediate dismissal. The Giants are going to have to show me what they can do. This is almost a new team, right? Barkley's gone. Daniel Jones is coming back. You got Malik Neighbors now. With Javonte Williams, I like him ahead of a lot of players in this case, but I'm going to go with Christian Kirk here. I think he's going to be the wide receiver one for Trevor Lawrence, at least in the early going, until Brian Thomas gets his feet under him. I think Jacksonville's going to absolutely have to pass against Miami. I think ETN will have a good game, but I don't think they're going to be able to lean on ETN like they would in other games. I think that's going to be a little bit of a track meet there. So I'm going to take Christian Kirk here.
You know what? I almost feel like, yeah, I agree. So Miami last year was a slot funnel defense. They do have Anthony Weaver now there, the defensive line coach from the Ravens, that is now the head DC there. So there could be changes. The secondary is going through a little bit of change right now, and Ramsey said he'll give it a go with his hamstring. So I'm not even sure what that is. The one thing I will tell you is this: Miami is going to put up points at home. So Miami is going to do their thing. That's going to force the Jags to throw. I do agree with the idea that Kirk, I do want to make sure that he is healthy. I know he was dealing with some injuries this offseason, so I'll have to check his sick score when we go over the injury report. But I am going to lean Kirk here. I think he does get a lot of volume in this matchup. All right. Ronald McDonald brings out another one. Are you going to Vikings 6-3 win against New York today? So as a Giants fan, we are probably not going to be the most explosive offense, and plus we have a pretty good defense. You got Sam Darnold there now. I think they're going to score more than 6-3, but I don't disagree that this one could be. By the way, Daniel Jones, I want to give him a benefit of the doubt here. Daniel, you finally got a good receiver. Make me proud, buddy. All right, get me 13 points this week and get a 13-10 win. That's all I ask.
And it sounds like Ron is also in agreement that in the previous question, Singletary is the third choice. If he's expecting a 6-3 game there. So.
Oh, yeah, you kind of answered your own question. Listen, I like Singletary. I think that overall, he's going to be probably the cheapest bell cow you've gotten in your drafts. He's always been very borderline RB2-ish over the last few years. I mean, he's been okay. And Houston, when he got a lot of the work down the stretch, taking over for Dameon Pierce, he was solid. So I actually think Singletary will be good, but they're on the road playing against Minnesota. I know Minnesota is going through some changes there as well. They lost Daniel Hunter this offseason, so I think there is something to watch there as well. But I don't know. I unfortunately agree with Dave here. I kind of want to see it before I just jump in, and especially when you have decent options. I think Singletary would have been fine if I was desperate, but I think Kirk is the play for my here. All right, Caleb Williams or C.J. Stroud. I could just tell you right off the bat I am not sitting Stroud, but what's your thoughts here, Derek?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sitting Stroud either. That's predicted to be one of the highest scoring games. We know what we're getting with Stroud. He's got a lot of weapons to choose from. Caleb Williams does as well, but again, he is a rookie playing his first game against a defense that's scripting against him. So it's not going to be as easy as it was in preseason or college for that matter. So yeah, give me Stroud pretty easily here.
Yeah, for me, it's Stroud as well. I think there's going to be plenty of offensive fireworks in Indianapolis for that game. I think the Bears game might be one of the lower scoring games. So I'll take Stroud here. They've got just so many weapons, and I'm really excited to see him in his second season. There's a lot of high expectations in the fantasy community for CJ Stroud, and he's probably one of the top 5 to 7 quarterbacks in any estimation. Yeah, I'm not sitting him too often.
No. And by the way, listen, they're playing the Colts today, and honestly, those games were kind of fun last year for them. But the other thing I think a lot of people don't remember about Stroud is that he did not have his best 2 weapons the entire season. 7 games. That was it. 7 games that Tank Dell and CJ Stroud played 50% of the snaps together. 7. Yeah. And this guy still had one of the best rookie seasons ever. Now he plops in Stephon Diggs. The sky is the limit for this guy. If you look at his stats in those 7 games, he was absolutely insane.
Yeah, let's not forget they were changing on the fly last year. That team was working on the go. Everything was new, right? The coach, the quarterback. They were using Dameon Pierce a lot early in the season until they pivoted to Singletary. Tank Dell was a rookie. Nico Collins, hardly anybody knew who Nico Collins was last year. Now he's a wide receiver 1 in fantasy drafts. So this is an exciting team. I'm not sitting those guys too often against anybody.
Yeah, and before we get off the subject of quarterback, we got some breaking news. Play the music. Dak Prescott just signed a 4-year, $240 million extension with the Cowboys. Just got reported.
Oh, wait, all right. We actually do have that's pretty good news right there. Good for Dak, obviously. And by the way, even better news than that, we got our first super chat of the year, and it's Scott Eminger. Scott knows, baby. Scott's been around for decades at this point. We've only been doing the show for like 5-6 years. God, it feels like it's been 30. Scott's been around from the beginning. We appreciate it as always. By the way, folks, as a reminder, if you want to get your questions quicker, if you become a super chatter, we do really appreciate it. Helps us with the show. And we always kick back 10% of anything we make over to Good Sports, a charity organization that helps kids with underprivileged communities supply sporting equipment to kids. That was a tongue twister. But anyway, thank you for the super chat, Scott. We do appreciate it. Morning, gents. Fantasy is back. It is, by the way. And so is the Sunday Live Show, PPR League. With Chase uncertainty at wide receiver, do I play Chase? Do I start Ridley or JSN? Good luck all this year. Good luck to all this year. Derek, what's your thoughts here? Are you taking a chance with Chase at home against the Patriots, or are you pivoting to Ridley against Chicago or JSN versus Sunday?
Yeah, this is a really tough one. In fact, it's one that I'm dealing with in one of my leagues as well. I'm leaning towards staying with Chase in my situation, but to be honest with you, my alternatives in that league are not as good as Ridley or JSN. So this is a good question, and I appreciate the super chat, Scott. For me, I'm going to stick with Chase. The news that I'm hearing, in fact, if I can just jump over to Savage helping us out here with another super chat that he is playing today. That's the latest news out that Chase will be playing today. I'm going to stick with Chase. I don't think he's going to play the whole game, but I think the best case scenario is that the Bengals get out to a lead and they don't have to play him. But they're going to make him happy. His contract is reportedly relatively close. He might be a little disgruntled, maybe just with the process more than anything. But if that coaching staff is pretty smart, and I think they are, they're going to want to make their best wide receiver happy. Even if he doesn't play a full game, I expect him to get plenty of targets and probably into the end zone as well. So I'm going to stick with Chase. But I do like the question, and it is not an easy pick here. But yeah, let me stay with Chase.
Before Dave, you jump in, I think another key here is that T. Higgins is inactive. So this is just another feather in the cap for Chase. Like, I don't want to pass it up. Listen, the Patriots defense, we'll see what Christian Gonzalez is. Obviously, I think he could be something special, that the new corner they have. Did not play that much last year because of injury, but he looked pretty good when he did. But I'm not going to sit Chase at home, especially with T. Higgins out. What's your thoughts, Dave?
For me, it comes down to, do I want a ceiling play or a full floor play? For me, Chase provides the highest ceiling, unquestioned. I am a little bit worried about all the sitting out he's done, the waffling back and forth about whether or not he's playing. But your point about T. Higgins being out is a valid thing. Who's going to be the weapons without T. Higgins, and if Chase is extremely limited? I'll play Chase as a ceiling play. If I'm looking for a safer floor, I'm going to go with Ridley.
You're not excited about Andre Ilyasovas? I mean, come
on. I like Yoshi-Vosh. And Trenton Irwin is an exciting wide receiver 3, and the tight end that never blocks anybody, Mike Gesicki. Those are exciting guys. I don't think that's going to be a super high scoring game today. I think the New England defense is way underrated. I think there's going to be a lot of New England waiver claims in DST leagues as the season goes along. It's too bad Barmore's hurt with the blood clots, or that team would be scary good on defense. But I still think they're going to be real good. Jared Mayo is an old linebacker. He knows what he's doing. He's been with Belichick. So if there's one thing legit about that team, it's going to be their defense.
I was debating on playing the Patriots D today as a defense in my league. I went with the Chargers against the Raiders. I figured, Minshew is a little bit fun, a little turnover prone, but I did debate the Patriots. So I hear you on that. That's a pretty good call. All right, I'm gonna jump into this last question, and then Derek, I'm gonna have you take over after this one. We're gonna talk quickly about good morning, Haram Gatto Jr. I don't. It sounds familiar. I feel like you've probably been on the show. I have the memory of a goldfish. I apologize in advance, but thank you for joining on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel for the Sunday Live Start Shit Show. We'll be here for 2 hours before kickoff every single week, so make sure you join us here as well. Good morning, happy week one. It is a happy week one. We're here. We're live. By the way, I love how Dave, when the bigger questions come in, you could barely see. It looks like Al.
I was going to say it's a wise choice to cover up my face. So
Yeah, we need to get him one of those hats there from
Yeah.
Home Improvement there. Yeah,
Home
this is
Improvement
perfect.
hat, yeah. He's like our good neighbor. He's an intelligent guy. We love it. You fit the role perfectly.
I'm Wilson.
Wilson, that's
Wilson,
right.
there it is. Yeah.
Not the volleyball in Castaway. Wilson in Home Improvement.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I don't know if that makes me Tim the Toolman Taylor, but whatever. I'll take it. All right. Let's go. Start one. RB, PPR, Chuba Hubbard, Tony Pollard, Eckler. We start 2 wide receivers. We have Deontay, Cortland Sutton, and Khalil Shakir. Now, Chuba, we've talked a bunch about the Saints game. You're playing against the Saints on the road. Tony Pollard in his new look. Tennessee Titans are facing the Chicago Bears on the road. Austin Eckler splitting work in Washington while playing the Tampa Bay Bucks on the road. Start 2 wide receivers. Deontay's on the road against the Saints. We have Cortland Sutton on the road against Seattle. And then we have Khalil Shakir at home playing against the Arizona Cardinals. What do you say, Derek?
Yeah, like you said, we haven't really talked Pollard or Eckler yet. But in this case, my answer may be different in a half PPR, but since this is a full PPR, give me Tony Pollard. Long term, I actually like Spears a little better this season, but going into week one, give me Tony Pollard in the PPR. Do you want me to do the wide receiver as well?
Yeah, just do it all.
Yeah, okay. So moving down to wide receiver, and we're starting 2 of these. Sutton's a play for me for sure. If you've watched any of our preseason work, I really love the fact that Sutton provides such a nice floor, and I don't expect that to change with Bo Nix at quarterback. So I'm playing Sutton, frankly, wherever I have him, because I want that nice floor, and who knows, maybe he'll actually put up a little ceiling play. And then the other one's a little bit closer for me. I'm going to go Deontay on this one. I have him rated just a little bit higher, so starting 2 PPR, give me Deontay and Sutton.
Okay, Dave?
Okay, for me, again, it comes to floor versus ceiling. Chuba definitely provides the safest floor of those 3 running backs. In a PPR league, I like Derek's answer of Tony Pollard, but I'll pivot. If I want a ceiling in this play for those running backs, I'm going to start Austin Eckler. I think he took a lot of heat last year because he really let people down. But that was more the Chargers than it was Austin Eckler. He got hurt early in the year. He missed a whole bunch of time early. And when he came back, that team had no offensive line. They couldn't run block. And, I look for him to at least get 40 to 50% of the work in Washington, especially early on. And if he gets a decent load, there's very few guys in PPR that are better as running backs. So if I'm looking for a ceiling play, I'll go Eckler. If I want to play it safe, I'll go Hubbard. As far as the wide receivers go, the thing that worries me about Cortland Sutton is he's playing in he's playing with a new quarterback. They don't have a lot of other weapons other than Javonte Williams. There's not a lot of other wide receivers there. They don't have a great tight end. I think it will be very easy to shadow him with Witherspoon and Wooten. So Deontay Johnson's kind of a fade this week for me. potentially facing Marshawn Lattimore, but I'm not going to fade him enough to the point where I don't think he provides the highest floor here. If I'm looking for a ceiling play, I'm going to go with Shakir. I think I think he's going to be one of Josh Allen's friends today. So,
okay. Yeah, I would say this for the running back question. Honestly, this is tough because like Chuba, I think is probably going to get the biggest workload. I think the other two guys are going to split. I think Brian Robinson is the lead back of the group. I think Eckler will probably be more regulated to a 1B, maybe a 2 in that offense. So I actually want to see what his workload is. Obviously, Tampa's a tough matchup against running backs. They do allow a little bit more through the air for running backs, so maybe that's okay for Eckler. I get that, but honestly, I don't even know what the role is going to be yet. So I'm going to go Pollard though, just because of the fact that when I was watching the preseason, I think Pollard is actually going to be the lead guy. I just from what you saw in the games, he got the short yardage work, he was getting the goal line work. Obviously, if no DeAndre Hopkins today, I feel like that Pollard could get a little bit more in the passing game too. And I think last year, coming off the broken fibula the year prior, I think Pollard really wasn't himself. I think he'll get back to what he was 2 years ago. So I like Pollard in this game. Wide receiver wise, listen, last year, the Seattle Seahawks, they got Mike McDonald now, who's a really good defensive-minded guy, but their cornerbacks on the outside are really good. And they were a slot funnel defense last year. They got beat in the slot, but they were one of the best defenses versus out wide receivers. So I'm actually not interested in Sutton this week. So I like Shakir and Deontay as well. I know Deontay's also got a tough matchup too, but give me a little bit of I don't even know what you want to call it. It's a tough call. So I'm just going to go Deontay, Shakir for that one. All right, Derek, take it from here. Are you on mute? Or am I?
I am on mute. I am on
Right.
mute. Yes, right. So, yeah, thank you to Zion for coming on the show. He had the Javonte Montgomery question, which we both went Montgomery. And that's a great segue to our next one. Javonte or Brian Robinson in a non-PPR. What do you think, Dave?
For me, I'm probably going to go with Javonte. I think the Denver, at least early on, is going to have to run more than they pass. Brian Robinson, I like a lot, but for me, if I'm going to attack Tampa Bay, I'm going to try to attack them through the air more than on the ground. So in this instance, I'll take Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I'm really the same. I've got Brian Robinson as my running back 35, and we've talked about Javonte. I have him at 19, and I like the reason you stated as well. I like Brian Robinson. I think he's going to get a lot of workload, but if the Commanders are going to stick with, then it's going to be through the air, and Jaden Daniels is probably going to show off his legs a little bit. So I think that takes a little bit away from the running game. So, yeah, give me Javonte, and we've talked about him enough today to know that we expect him to be, get a lot of workload and an integral part of that game plan. What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, I think Javonte. I mean, listen, last year, if you just look at the fantasy points allowed, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, Seattle was actually not that good against running backs last year, and the Tampa Bay Bucks have always been pretty good up front against running backs. So I actually think I'm going to take Javonte. Listen, I think Javonte last year, let's call it a wash. Multi-ligament knee injury. Yeah. Last year was kind of like, forget about it. The guy lost weight. By the way, Sean Payton has made one thing clear. He likes his guys. He got rid of everybody he doesn't like. See you, Russ. See you, Jerry Jeudy. You're out of here. I want my guys in there. And Javonte was on the block. And then Javonte lost a little weight, and then he stepped up, and then he earned that first job. I think Javonte's going to return to form and play very well this year.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when Javonte was going to get cut.
Sounds like you weren't born yesterday. You know what I mean? That sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. So Scott comes in with another super chat. Thanks again, Scott, for being with us. PPR League. He's got McLaurin, Olave, Ridley, Iosivas, Odunze. Need 3. Let's start there, and then we'll move to the others. What do you like with those running back or wide receivers? 3 of those, Dave.
For me, McLaurin's an easy start, and so is Olave. I mean, I'm not hugely high on Olave, mostly because his quarterback is Derek Carr. But of those guys, McLaurin and Olave are pretty easy starts for me. I don't know if I'm ready to give Odunze a start at this point over a guy like Ridley. I think later on down the road, I think Odunze is probably going to be one of the guys I go to. Yoshivash is probably going to be the wide receiver two today, but I'm still not ready to say okay he's going to be the guy. I know he could get some volume today with Chase limited and Higgins out, but I'm going to go with McLaurin, Olave, and Ridley.
Yeah, same for me. I like those three in this situation. If you looked at my DFS plays, I do have Odunze in there, more of a GDP or GPP, upside there.
Yeah,
because if he gets targeted and with all the attention on some of those other weapons there, he could be a good play. But in this case, like you said, to me, he's not challenging Ridley yet in this situation for that start. So give me McLaurin, Olave, and Ridley as well.
The only thing that would change that for me is that Keenan Allen's been dealing with an injury. I'm sure the injury reports are out at this point. So if he's playing, I'm definitely in on Keenan Allen. He's a volume play, but no, not yet.
Allen is in, so we're good there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here's just kind of really quick. Like, I know we talked a little bit about the McLaurin situation, but like, I'm not convinced yet that Jamel Dean is going to be shadowing him. There's been no indication that's the case. So I'm going to go with McLaurin. The Tampa Bay secondary is how you beat Tampa Bay. You don't beat them on the ground. So I think Terry McLaurin will be fine. There is literally like no legit second option. I'm like throwing darts at Zach Ertz in DFS today because I feel like he's going to get dumb targets and it's going to be awesome. Chris Olave, like, so last year, if you look at the New Orleans Atlanta matchup, he was, he did find the end zone in one game, which is great, but he played well. So I'm okay with Olave. I think you're going to start him as well. And then when it comes down to Ridley, Yoshivas, and Odunze, listen, the one thing that the Patriots did last year, and I know it was Bill Belichick, but it's Jerome Mayo. He's the same guy. He's basically being hired up. They took away the middle of the field. The slot receivers were terrible last year. Yoshivash might be the two, but he is going to be the slot guy. I think Trenton Irwin will be the replacement for T. Higgins. We've seen that plenty of times before. So I'm actually going to stick with Ridley here because I think Odunze, listen, the Titans, I have no idea how good that defense is going to be. But it is a rookie quarterback, and he has so much target competition. I want to kind of see it first. So I'm going to go Olave, McLaurin, and Ridley as well.
All right, let's move on to his running back question. McLaughlin or Spears? Dave?
I'm not ready to raise up Jaleel McLaughlin yet until I see some actual results. For me here, it's Spears. I think he's going to be the 1B to Pollard's 1A, and that's a pretty good thing to do. I mean, there were a few games last year that I felt comfortable starting Spears as a rookie as a flex. So I'm going to probably take Spears over McLaughlin here.
Yeah, same for me. I just said a few minutes ago that I think long term I like Spears a lot there in Tennessee, and I'm going to start with that as well. So yeah, give me Spears here, especially in the PPR. I like his big playability. Maybe catching a swing pass out of the backfield and breaking one for big gains. So yeah, give me Spears here as well. Bobby?
It's funny, like. So last year there was only one team that allowed 1,000 receiving yards to running backs, and that was the Chicago Bears. So I think that Spears is going to be involved enough in the passing game, and I'm a little curious to see how that goes with the split. But like McLaughlin's the same thing, right? He's going to be behind Javonte. Give me Spears slightly, just because I feel like Chicago, the way they beat them is through the air with running backs. So I think Spears might get a couple catches today, and he'll be all right, especially if this is full PPR. So
yeah, so all three of us on Spears. I like that. And then lastly, tight end Ferguson, with Dallas and his new highly paid quarterback in Cleveland, or are we going with McBride in Buffalo? Dave?
Yeah, for me, this is pretty easy. I love the Buffalo Arizona game as a high scoring game. I give me McBride here. Oh, by the way, Scott, thanks a lot for the donation and the great questions.
Yeah, same here. I haven't gotten to the weather report yet, but there is a little bit of weather in Buffalo, and it's not rain, but it's wind, which may affect some downhill or downfield passing, which to me even boosts McBride up a little bit further. The
Good,
short passes. So
good thing it's never windy in Cleveland.
yeah, exactly, right. But yeah, give me McBride here as well over Ferguson. I do like Ferguson, don't get me wrong, but give me McBride today. Bobby?
The Browns were the toughest matchup last year for tight ends. So on the road, maybe just going to lean McBride. The Bills are very tough too. They were like a bottom 6 matchup last year for tight ends. So, but I'm going to lean McBride. I just think that Buffalo's going to be able to put up points. That Cleveland Cowboys game might be uglier than we think. So I'm going to lean the higher scoring game potentially.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, Scott. Great to have you in here, and thanks again for the super chats and the good questions. So let's get back to where we left off. It's GR. Thanks for joining us, GR. Half PPR 10 team. Who do you drop? And I'm assuming that we're going to drop before kickoff and not waiting to see what week 1 brings us. So before kickoff, drop. Maybe he loaded up, didn't select a kicker or a defense in the draft to get that extra position player, and now he needs to fill that vacancy in his roster. Who are you going to drop here, Dave?
For me, half PPR. I'm tempted to say Keon Coleman as the biggest unknown, but I think Coleman's going to end up having a pretty decent role for Buffalo, and he's the only wide receiver you've got listed here. So I'm assuming you have plenty of running backs. For me, I'm hanging on to Chuba for the first few weeks until Jonathan Brooks gets up to speed. You might get a decent half a season out of Chuba. As far as Dowdle and Eckler goes, those are some of the better second running backs to me for a team. But when it comes down to it, I think I'm going to stick with Eckler and probably drop Dowdle.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, if you're on and you can kind of give us a little bit more of your roster, that would be helpful. But yeah, I'm kind of on the same token. With none of these, you make the note that Chuba won't start for you, and to me, he's the best of the 3 running backs listed, and that means you're probably pretty deep at running back. So in that case, I'm probably going to keep Coleman as well. To me, though, I'm going to drop Eckler and not Dowdle. I think Dowdle is going to be the running back 1 in Dallas. And frankly, this is just my own opinion. I don't believe Zeke has much left in the tank. He's going to get goal line carries. He's going to fall into the end zone, but Dowdle is the running back to own there. So if that's the case, Eckler to me is the drop here. But it sounds like in any case, any of these are going to just be bye week fillers for you. And the best play would be either Dowdle or Chuba, for the next few weeks anyway, dropping Eckler. What about you, Bobby?
I mean, yeah, I had to do something similar today because I didn't draft tight ends. Defenses or kickers. So I just stashed a bunch of guys, and I had to drop Jaleel McLaughlin in a league because I'm I need a kicker and a defense this week. So that's always fun. When he goes off for 10 catches or some crazy stuff, I'll just weep the rest of the day. I think with Dowdle, I gotta see it through. I'm on your side with this, Derek. Dalvin Cook and Zeke Elliott just don't excite me too much. I think Dowdle might be the main ball carrier, but the only issue I have with Dowdle is that I don't know if he's going to get any passing game work. So I don't know how much 12 carries for maybe 60 yards a week is going to really do for fantasy unless he falls into the end zone. Does he get goal line work? But I still need to see it through. Eckler, I believe Brian Robinson's the guy. I think Eckler is there too. He's going to help out a little bit. I think J.D. Daniels, a rookie, is going to be mobile. I just don't know how much upside he really has. I'm going to keep Coleman, obviously, long-term. And Chuba, I think might surprise some people. We don't know how long Jonathan Brooks will actually be out. They might really take it slow with him. So you might end up with Chuba for longer than 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm going to keep him there. So I think my actual drop out of this group is going to be Eckler.
All right. So we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I think we can do a couple more here before we hand it off to you, Bobby, for the injury report. Ramiro, thanks for joining us. We're here to help you. Half PPR, but you didn't give us a question. So if you're still hanging in there, give us a question and we'll get you after the updates at the top of the hour.
I will say I like half PPR. So
I don't. I'm a full PPR guy. I know Bobby's probably more half as well. So I'm going to lose this one, but Lindorphins.
I'm sorry, but I can't accept the fact that if you catch a football for -5 yards, you get a half a point. It just blows my mind. It's like, what are we doing here? But I've all my rankings are full PPR now because that's what people play. People love points. Give the people what they want, and then that's why you should have 6 points per passing touchdown as well.
Yeah, I'm there as well. All right, Lindorphins is back. Great to see you again. Fields is starting. That's what I'm hearing as well. Russ is going to sit. Do you start him over Burrow and their situation that we've talked about, or are you sticking with Joe Burrow? Dave?
I don't think it's crazy at all. Well, maybe a little bit, but the one thing about Fields is I don't think there's a better example of a quarterback that is better in fantasy than in real life since Tim Tebow is Justin Fields. Fields is entertaining as hell, but there's a reason that he flamed out in Chicago and he didn't win the job outright in Pittsburgh. But I don't think Atlanta is going to be that tough of a defense that I need to worry about starting Fields against it. I know Raheem Moore is a defensive coach, but I think this game could be a little bit higher scoring than expected. So I'm going to probably go with Fields over Burrow just for today, with all the uncertainty circling around in Cincinnati.
Interesting. Now I'm going to stick with Burrow. There is a lot of question marks there, but Burrow is the better play. We got mixed results with Fields, and again, he did have some challenges in Chicago. He's coming into a new situation. He split time with Russ in the preseason, although Russ was kind of banged up a little bit too all preseason. But no, I can't throw my week one. You want to get off to a good start. I can't throw my week one plays and put it on Fields' shoulders. I'm going to stick with Burrow. Again, I mentioned before, I think Chase is he may not play the whole game, but he's going to be involved. And, Burrow with a couple touchdowns. In fact, I even like the running backs there to catch some balls out of the backfield too, maybe get in the end zone on the passing touchdown. So give me Burrow. I'm going to stick with the better player and hope for the best. Bobby?
You know me, man. I'm going Fields all day. He is a cheat code in fantasy football. I'm sorry, but Burrow is playing against a tough New England defense, and I think that the injuries to T. Higgins and also Jamar Chase not being 100%, Burrow is a pocket passer. He's not going to rush for 50 yards in this game. I like Burrow as a better football player, but Fields is just a different level of fantasy asset because by the way, Arthur Smith, who has been coaching guys like Mariota in the years past, he'll lean into the running game for quarterbacks. By the way, and Fields last year, very similar setup, right? Pickens is taking over for DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth. It's not like he had a plethora of weapons last year, and he did it all with these great weapons, which ironically now the Bears have. So I think the Steelers' offense is probably just as good as what he had last year in Chicago. This guy was putting up major points on the ground and also with DJ Moore and Cole Kmet.
Yeah. Mediocre quarterbacks tend to follow Arthur Smith around. Ryan Tannehill was always an underrated rushing quarterback, and Arthur Smith actually made him fantasy relevant. So, yeah.
And we know Arthur Smith loves throwing to his tight ends, right?
Well, yeah, that means that Darnell Washington's probably going to have a big game.
There you go. All right.
Derek, by the way, you could just finish everybody who's here, and then we'll do the report if we don't. I'll give it 5 more minutes.
Yeah. So we're going to get back to GR. So remember this question here a few minutes ago, which one to drop. So GR came in and gave us his starting running backs, Mostert, Kyron, Pacheco, Kamara, and Zamir White. So thumbs up. I think, the fact that we discussed dropping a running back, although we disagreed on which one, but dropping the running back is the way to go, right?
Yeah, well, it's not, to me, it's not a big gap between Eckler and Dowdle. So I'm okay dropping either one.
Yeah, and he does have Brooks on the IR as well. So keeping Chuba makes a lot of sense. And he's stashing Brooks and then all these other running backs. So, I think that's the way to go as well. All right, so let me go back. We've got favorite kicker, favorite defense play of the week. Bobby, we're going to throw that one to you. Give us one kicker and one defense.
Well, I think the Bengals D playing against that Patriots is probably the one that if you can get your hands on it. But I think the deeper names, I actually do like the Patriots this week against the Bengals a little bit. I would say the Chargers have been the one I picked up, though. They are playing against the Raiders. I think Gardner Minshew is a good player, but he's turnover prone, and I think you can get a couple points. By the way, the Chargers have a lot of talent on defense. It just doesn't seem like they ever get it to really click. But they got Bosa and Knack on the ends, and hopefully that becomes finally a healthy duo. So I think the Chargers are an interesting plug and play. And then I'm picking up the Rams kicker this week. I have him everywhere. I put him all my lineups. Rams versus Detroit in a dome, high-scoring game. By the way, Stafford, elite quarterback play. So I do like that as well. So I'm going with the Rams kicker this week.
All right, Dave, you have anything to add quick?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with the kicker on the other side, Jake Bates. I do think that's the highest scoring game of the week, and Jake Bates has the potential to kick 60-yard field goals. As far as the defense, I'm still going to probably go for the big play defense over the solid defense. So I'm going to take Dallas here against Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, well, I've actually got a mix of both of you. So I've got the Detroit kicker as well, and almost all my lineups. I like him there, kicking indoors. 14 out of 17 games this year. So yeah, I've got him everywhere. And then similar to what Bobby said, I like the Chargers at the Raiders. I think that's a game where a defense could really help out your fantasy team. So. Let's move one more. He's got Debo or Terry McLaurin in a PPR. Dave?
For me, it's Debo, 100%. We talked about Ayuk maybe being somewhat limited in week 1, and there's a potential that CMC might be a little bit limited this week as well. So to me, that just elevates Debo a little bit higher, and I'm going to play Debo while he's healthy until he runs into a wall and hurts himself.
Yeah,
I do like Debo better than McLaurin this week, although I do love McLaurin.
I fully agree. Do you agree with us, Bobby?
Debo it is.
Awesome. All three of us. All right. Chasing points after Thursday, Friday. I think a lot of people are chasing points after some of those big numbers that were put up in the first 2 games. Taysom Hill, boom or bust, or are we staying with Njoku in a half PPR? Dave?
If I'm chasing points, I'm going to accept the risk of Taysom Hill here. Taysom Hill to me is the best ball player maybe in the NFL. I don't really like using him in managed leagues, but if I'm chasing points, I'm going to go for ceiling, and it's going to be Hill over Njoku.
Yeah, same for me. Bobby?
Yeah. Njoku, by the way, I'm a little cautiously not optimistic on. I don't his numbers with Deshaun Watson have not been great. He was much better with Flacco. And then Dallas, by the way, last year has been good against tight ends. So not really loving it overall. So I'll take the swing with Taysom.
Yeah, same here. In fact, we know Matt's not here today. He's actually out of the country, but he did reach out to me when he noticed that I plugged in Taysom Hill in our joint team over Freiermuth. And I had to explain to him, maybe he was, sipping on some early morning cocktails or whatever. But I had to explain to him why that made a little more sense in our situation. And he came around, of course, as he usually does. But yeah, Taysom Hill for me as well. All right, we've got one more question in the chat here before we hand it over to Bobby. Thanks for being with us, Artep. Chase potentially limited. We've talked about that. Higgins being out now. Are we sitting Burrow for Tua? So is he overthinking this, Dave?
Not to me. I don't really care for Burrow much this week personally. I think New England's an underrated defense. I think there's a lot of question marks in the passing game for Cincinnati. Miami, it's wheels up against Jacksonville. I'll take Tua at home this week over Burrow at home.
Yeah, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm gonna Tua at home. Yeah, I think the Miami Dolphins at home are kind of. I would love to go check the tool right now. I haven't actually looked up Tua, but let's check it up real quick. Home road split. Let's give a little Tua action here. He was much better at home, so I'm gonna go with Tua.
Yeah, and the over-under in that game is the second highest on the slate at 49.5. Like I said, at home, lots of weapons against the Jaguars. Yeah, give me Tua as well. All right, Bobby, that's the end of our questions right now. Let me go ahead and hand it over to you for the injury report.
Yeah, boys, take 5, take 10, go get a drink of coffee or water. Go get yourself something, stretch your legs a little bit, set those DFS and fantasy football lines. Put in your player props, by the way. Get in there as well. I'll put you guys back up in 1 second. Enjoy. All right, let's talk quickly about the injury report this week, folks. We're going to have a quick rundown. Obviously, I don't have the graphic because life happens, but I do have a list of names that I thought was interesting. And then I'm also going to break down quickly some of the defensive changes that I think are going to be important in week 1. So I'm going to run through some of those as well. Russell Wilson, of course, is out today. It means Justin Fields is in. I love Justin Fields. I have him in my DFS lineup. By the way, just forget about how good he is as a quarterback. He is definitely someone that I would play over Joe Burrow, for example. Even guys like Justin Herbert, I would play Justin Fields. He's an elite dual threat quarterback. I love every second of him as well. DeAndre Hopkins is actually in this week. He'll probably be slightly limited, but he is in the lineup. So you're going to have Ridley, you're going to have Hopkins, you're going to have Tyler Boyd, the running back. So there's a lot of mouths to feed in that Chicago Bears game. I'm not starting Hopkins. The Bears have been really good against outside receivers, plus all the target competition. I would take a wait-and-see approach with the injury. Chase is in. Higgins is out. You're probably going to see a lot of Trenton Irwin on the outside. You're also going to have Yoshi Bosch in the slot, Mike Gesicki as well. I expect Chase to be somewhat limited, but obviously not sitting Jamar Chase, but maybe avoid him in DFS. With Higgins out and the way the Patriots are kind of set up, I think Trenton Irwin makes an interesting DFS dart throw, even looking at guys like Mike Gesicki as well. Let's jump down to some interesting healthy inactives that I thought when I was going through this process. Roschon Johnson is a healthy inactive. I have no idea what that means. DeAndre Swift and also they have Khalil Herbert. Neither of them have ever been pass pro guys. But what it does tell me is maybe Swift has earned some more third down work. Roschon Johnson was going to be clearly the third back, maybe a pass pro guy. But him being out is interesting, to say the least. So I think this week I would definitely look at probably maybe starting DeAndre Swift a little more than I usually would. And it looks like Khalil Herbert has locked in that number 2 slot. Cam Akers is a healthy inactive, which means Dameon Pierce has actually earned that RB2 spot. I know there were some questions there as well. So if you're looking to handcuff Joe Mixon, it looks like it's going to be Dameon Pierce. Josh Downs is out for a little bit. He's out this week. It looks like A.D. Mitchell will be the main slot guy with Alex Pierce on the outside. Now, I know there's a lot of A.D. Mitchell optimism, but I am a little concerned that he is playing in the slot most of the time. So we'll have to watch today if he does take over Alex Pierce in some 2 receiver sets, because if once Josh Downs comes back, he is the starting slot receiver. So for A.D. Mitchell purposes, I do want to see if they get him on the outside a little more this week. Jalen Wright, by the way, folks, the Miami Dolphins running back is a healthy inactive. I mean, let's go. I mean, wheels up on Devin Achane, Raheem Mostert. I've been talking about this all offseason. I believe that Jalen Wright was there to be the next guy up. I did not believe this was a 3-person committee. Today kind of solidifies that. Jalen Wright being out just puts a little feather in the cap for Raheem Mostert, Devin Achane's workload today. I definitely love that. So that's something to keep an eye on for the next few weeks. I do think Jalen Wright will be on the roster at some point in this active day on game day, but this is something notable. Definitely not a special teams guy. Maybe they're saving him just in case of an injury. Javon Baker, one of the better rookies. I do think the Patriots are going to lean into their veterans a little bit. So him being not on the active roster is interesting to say the least. But maybe when they move to Drake May, Baker will get more playing time. And then of course Spencer Rattler. I know a lot of people have been saying that he might take over for Derek Carr. I think a lot of people are underrating Derek Carr as just a regular average NFL quarterback. I think he's not great. He's not good, but he is definitely an NFL starting quarterback. If Spencer Rattler was really taking over as the potential next guy, I think he would be on the active roster this week as well. Let's talk about some of these defensive changes here that I wanted to highlight for week one. If you're using our tools over on Razzball.com and using the slot versus wide tool, for example, we want to make sure that you kind of understand like what's kind of changed. Some of the bigger changes that we noticed too is Dallas's secondary is extremely banged up. Trayvon Diggs is coming off injury. They also love the other cornerback Bland. He's also out this week. So the Amari Cooper at home is an interesting start this week, even though the Dallas Cowboys are a little bit of a tougher matchup. So that was interesting, noticing the injuries and kind of some guys coming back from interesting injuries for the Dallas Cowboys. The Minnesota Vikings last season was one of the better out wide matchups. We do want to call out they brought in Stephon Gilmore and Shaq Griffin. So there is going to be some changes for that Brian Flores defense with Brian Murphy now playing probably in the slot. So just keep an eye on that. Obviously, we'll be watching this all off season, all season long, tracking that stuff. But that is a notable change. Also, the Tennessee Titans last year, one of the best out wide matchups, might not be this year. We want to make sure that we call out new defensive coordinator. Ravens secondary coach comes over. They also have a new head coach, but also their defense has changed. L'Jarius Sneed is now on the roster as well, who's one of the better cover corners in football. So something to keep monitoring all off season. We want to make sure you know that there are going to be changes to the slot versus wide tool in 2024, but some of the notable things that we wanted to call out for you before the season starts. All right, let's get back to some of the start sit questions. Looks like the gentlemen are ready to go. All right, boys, that's all I got. Back to you.
Yeah, before we get into the questions here, this little break, I'm seeing a bunch of video and posts. They say Tyreek Hill was arrested, and there's some video evidence to show it that he was arrested this morning on the way to the stadium. Haven't verified that yet, but let's just assume for a minute that there's some truth to this. What do you think? What's your first reaction, Bobby?
Adam Schefter would have called it out. If it didn't come from Adam Schefter or
it doesn't exist, huh?
Jay Glazer or Ian Rappaport, like that's Jay Glazer written all over it. By the way, Jay Glazer calls that stuff out. I don't believe it. That would have been 100%. We just got a tweet 11 minutes ago from Jay Glazer. Here we go. So I think he would have been like, hey, by the way, Tyreek Hill got arrested. So I'm going to say BS on that one.
All right. It might be some old news. Maybe Jacksonville fans, trying to get under the skin there.
Yeah. Doug Peterson sent out that report.
All right, let's get back to the questions. We got the next one in. PPR pick 2. We've got Ayuk, JSN, Brian Thomas Jr., or Odunze. This is a good one. What do you think, Dave?
Of those 4, I've got to start Ayuk. He's the best player listed there. I don't care about whatever limitations are. He's the big play potential alone makes him a ceiling play for me. Out of the other 2, I'm tempted to go with Odunze, but I'm probably going to go with JSN instead of either of the rookies.
All right, Bobby?
Man, I'm not going to sit Ayuk for these guys yet. Brian Thomas is interesting to me. Let me look up really quick. Derek, go ahead. You can say something because I honestly want to look at the Dolphins' secondary situation. I know we talked a little bit about Jalen Ramsey being banged up, but let me just check the 6 score here real quick.
Yeah, so to start off, I'm like you, Dave. I'm not going to sit Ayuk yet or in this situation. we understand that he may be limited for various reasons, but not to the point where you're sitting him with one of these other, or with two of these other guys, frankly. JSN, I have 38. Odunze, I have 44. And looking for Brian Thomas in my list. He's not that far behind either. Yeah, so for me, I'm going to go with JSN, against that Rams defense. I think that Seattle can certainly exploit that matchup. They've got a lot of weapons to do it, and I really think JSN is going to move forward this year and be more of a primary target with DK Metcalf. So give me JSN and Ayuk as well.
I think I'm going to go the same. Yeah, I like the Brian Thomas call. There's been a lot of mixed reports with him. I've heard this offseason, in the beginning he was kind of meh, and then he kind of emerged a little bit later in training camp, which is great. But there is a lot. The Jacksonville Jaguars have a bunch of weapons. I mean, even Gabe Davis is going to earn some targets. Last year, by the way, the thing that's underrated about the Jags last year, they didn't really have a third receiver. Zay Jones was out a lot of the year. Parker Washington is still kind of developing a little bit. I know there's some optimism there, but they didn't have a third guy. Calvin Ridley was coming off a huge absence, and Kirk got hurt. This year, it's like a little different. There's going to be a lot more mouths to feed. Hopefully, these guys stay healthy, of course, and Kirk stays on the field. So I like JSN. By the way, I don't think it matters so much that he passes Lockett, because I think the philosophy under Ryan Grubb is going to be completely different. I mean, if you look at Washington last year, their whole offense was based on 3 elite wide receivers in Odunze, Polk, and also McMillan. So I think that this offense as a whole, under Shane Waldron, just used so many 2 tight end sets, which is just horrible. And that's Shane. By the way, Shane Waldron, who is the OC for the Bears now, and all of a sudden they're just going to have 3 really good receivers for fantasy, which we just saw last year with JSN, Lockett, and Metcalf. None of those guys were top 20, and JSN was outside the top 50 in PPR points per game. But I'm sure Dunze and all those guys with a rookie quarterback are going to just change all that. But anyway, that's my Bears rant. So I think the philosophy for the Seattle Seahawks is going to change. So I think that's going to help JSN get on the field more. I think really it's more the matchup. Denver's always been good in the secondary, but Patrick Surtain, who's the stud, is an outside corner. So that's Metcalf, Lockett issues. JSN still seems to be the slot guy. So I'm actually going to go Ayuk and JSN as well.
All right, so 3 for 3 here. All right, and we just got an update on the Tyreek situation. Detained for speeding on the way to the game. I mean, so eager to get to the stadium and get going.
If the game was in Jacksonville, I'd worry about him being jailed. But it's in Miami.
So the question is, are you rushing to your prop bets and blasting the over now? Now that we know he's known for his speed. Maybe it's not just his feet anymore, but okay, he's fired up, the blood's flowing. Are you rushing to make those prop bets and blast the over now that he's fired up to play?
You always bet the over on Tyreek, baby. I mean, they just pepper that man with targets. So
yeah, I know. I mean, other than the fact that he would be in lockup, there was no reason to think he wouldn't play, but. Thanks for the update, Marius, and closing that loop for us.
Before we move on, it is notable that the Dolphins secondary has the lowest 6 score, which is Sports Injury Central, Pro Football Doc, a great resource. Their secondary 6 score is 70. Most teams in week 1 are in the 90s. So the Dolphins are clearly dealing with some injuries. And by the way, they had some movement this offseason. One of their corner safeties left this offseason too. So there's change already for the secondary in general. Now Ramsey's dealing with a slight injury, so maybe there is something to Trevor Lawrence being able to keep up with Tua at home today. So I think there might be something there.
Awesome. All right, we got another new person joining the show, Juan Pena. Thanks for joining us, Juan. You've got a couple questions here. We'll go ahead and start with your quarterback questions. I think this might be the easiest one to tackle first. Caleb Williams or Jared Goff? What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I'm 100% behind Jared Goff at home. I'm a Jared Goff at home truther. 100%. I love Caleb Williams, but I'm not starting him over Jared Goff in Detroit yet.
Yeah, Bobby?
Goff at home, by the way. Our home split tool. I got to talk to Rudy. I got to get these numbers up. We got to get him to use 6 point per passing touchdown. This very conservative 4 point is driving me crazy here. But Jared Goff averaged 5.5 fantasy points more at home versus on the road. This guy is a home beast. And by the way, the Rams also are dealing with some injuries. Darius Williams, who they got back, who they let go, went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, now back, now hurt his hamstring. And also Tre'Davious White, who they got from Buffalo, is coming off multiple injuries as well. He is going to play, but he is extremely limited. So the Rams secondary is dealing with a ton of injuries, which I should have brought up in my injury report. Sorry, folks, a little late, better late than never. But that's key too. So I'm all in on, I think, Jameson Williams and all those guys. Give me Jared Goff all day.
Yeah, same with me. Jared Goff all day, and that makes it another consensus three pick here.
Yeah, this game could be a Super Tecmo Bowl situation.
Love it.
All right, so let's get to his other questions. This is going to take a little bit longer. So he's looking for his wide receiver 1 and 2, as well as running backs 1 and 2. And let's see, do we see? We don't see if this is PPR or half. So let's assume half. Actually, let's jump to this one. Makes it a little bit easier for us. Wide receiver 1 and 2: Tank Dell, Calvin Ridley, Mike Williams, DJ Moore, Jacoby Myers, or Tyler Lockett. What do you think, Dave? Let's assume half PPR. Juan, you can give us a confirmation on that, but we'll assume half PPR until we hear differently.
It doesn't matter to me. DJ Moore's a slam dunk as my wide receiver 1 here out of these guys. And I'm going to go to Tank Dell as my wide receiver 2 over Ridley, Jacoby Myers, or Lockett. I like Jacoby Myers. He put up good numbers last year, but this is a guy that couldn't score a touchdown in New England, that scored a ton of them in Las Vegas last year. So he was a little bit touchdown dependent. I want to see what he looks like first with Gardner Minshew under center as opposed to Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell before I go wheels up. And Lockett is in the sunset, right? So it comes down to me. Mike Williams is probably going to be limited this week. I love him as an intrigue play later in the year, but it comes down to Dell and Ridley for me for the 2, and I'm going to go with Dell.
All right, Bobby.
You know, it's funny. I was looking at the 49ers. They lost their safety, their really good safety too, and they had some changes. And I'm like, man, if Mike Williams was healthy, I would kind of like this whole deep threat, taking the top off. But I can't trust him yet. You know, the guy's been out all off season, barely practiced. I'm not going to go with him. I like the Tank Dell, the track meet type offense that they could have with New Orleans. Against the Colts. So I'm actually going to go Tank Dell and DJ Moore.
All right, that's 2. But I'm Tank Dell worries me. We've got 3, 1, potentially 1A, 1B, 1C wide receivers there. Which one is going to, rise up above the other ones? Is it going to be Nico? Is it going to be Tank Dell, or is it going to be Stephon Diggs? We don't know. Yeah, honestly. So to me, I'm going to start more like you guys, but I'm going to go Ridley on this one because I just don't know what we're going to get with that Texans passing game. I could be totally wrong, and Dell could have, 95 and 2 touchdowns, or he could have, 18 and 0. I just don't know. And so because of that, I want to see this play out a little bit just to see where the target share looks like before I jump in on that Texans wide receiver room. And so I'm going to go Ridley and Moore.
Real quick in the Texans situation, the only thing that worries me about Diggs today is he might end up playing a lot in the slot. And Kenny Moore is one of the better slot corners in the league. So for this week, I'm probably fading Diggs some. So, but I get your reasoning. It's not a a chasm between Ridley and Dell for me.
Yeah.
Dig Sum sounds like a Chinese food option. You know, it's like I want to just push back a little bit on the Ridley versus Tank Dell. Honestly, the Ridley situation is probably a bigger question mark. It's a new team, a new offense. You got Hopkins, you got Tyler Boyd, you got yourself like a whole plethora of weapons in the backfield too. Honestly, at least I understand that Tank Dell is coming off the foot injury, so that's key. And Diggs is there, but I think both guys have just huge question marks. I mean, we really don't know how good Will Levis is. I at least know CJ Stroud is really good. Will Levis had that really good first game last year, and then after that, he kind of just was okay. And then last year against the Indianapolis Colts, Tank Dell just roasted him. He had like 7 catches and a touchdown. So I hear you. I just think that there's a lot more uncertainty across the board than just for Tank Dell.
And I'll say real quick, I'm not a big fan as Ridley as a wide receiver 1. I like him more as a wide receiver 2, with another option, decent option. And if Hopkins isn't good to go, then to me, I'm fading Ridley some.
Yeah, and just because I want to have it on tape, you know, Jacoby Myers is a volume receiver, and if Minshew comes out and he's been known to throw the ball, 40, 50 times a game, granted, some of those balls sail into the crowd, aren't hitting their target. But if they come out slinging in against the Chargers, Jacoby Myers could be a volume play, and I'm not going to discount that. I'm not picking him here, but I don't think he's a complete overlook either. I think Jacoby Myers, especially with any focus that the Chargers are going to have, it's going to be on Adams. I think Jacoby Myers is maybe a sneaky flex play for some. In your lineups where you have some question marks that we were talking about with other players. Jacoby Myers is not necessarily a bad start.
Not at all.
Anyone have any pros or cons to that argument?
No, I like Myers a lot as a standalone player, but just with the other options in this particular question, I'm going elsewhere.
I just haven't seen it for Minshew. Like, he hasn't supported a second wide receiver, like, really ever. It was DJ Chark back in Jacksonville. Last year was Michael Pittman. There wasn't a number 2 that was really fantasy relevant. I think Devontae is going to still be that. I mean, once Antonio Pierce took over last year, he was like, we're going to get the ball to Devontae Adams a shit ton, and we're going to run the shit out of the football. And that's really what their philosophy was last year. And then look at Indianapolis. Once Minshew became the full-time starter, it was Pittman basically getting most of the work. They focused the run game through Jonathan Taylor. There wasn't like the Downs and those guys. There really wasn't another fantasy relevant guy. So that does concern me a little bit with Myers. I'm not saying Minshew. And listen, if you look at last year with freaking the OC, God, I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. This OC was the Bears OC last year, and
Luke Getsy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jeez, I've only talked about him like 16,000 times this offseason, but thank you. That's why I brought Dave on today. He's my mind. This is just me just ranting. But even Luke Getsy last year, he funneled everything through DJ Moore. So it just seems – I'm not saying it can't be Myers too. I just think when you're looking at the quarterback, the OC, how the play calling was last year, it just seems like I don't know if there's going to be a second fantasy relevant receiver consistently in this offense.
The thing with Uncle Rico to me is he's more accurate than he's less accurate than Garoppolo, and he's got a better arm. So I think probably I like Devontae Williams more with Minshew than I did with Garoppolo. Devontae Adams, sorry.
Yeah.
Too much Javonte Williams.
Everybody's a lot of Javonte today.
Yeah. All right, and then we've got one more from Juan. This is a running back question, and before we get to the question, I just want to address. It looks like he had Josh Jacobs in his flex. So Juan, when you're doing this in the future, if you've got a running back in this case, who plays on Thursday or Friday night, essentially before Sunday, and you're going to start him, put him in your running back slot. You've got some good options there, so you're pretty safe. But get that starting running back in your running back slot in those early games, and leave your flexes open in case there's some some strange occurrence on Sunday morning and you need the flexibility to plug in a wide receiver or even, a tight end in there rather than a running back. So just give yourself that flexibility and keep that flex spot open as long as you can.
That's a great point, and it's even more important later in the season when injuries start hitting and bye weeks come up.
Yeah. So that being said, he's got Jacobs. So he already started him in the flex, and now he's looking for 2 running backs of these 4. And those are 4 good options. Breece Hall, Kyren Williams, Jerome Ford, or Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, for me, Breece Hall's a slam dunk. He's one of my favorite running backs this year. If there's a guy to me that can unseat McCaffrey, as long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy, if there's a guy that can unseat McCaffrey as running back 1, it's Breece Hall. I'm never sitting him. And when Kyren Williams is playing, I don't care if he's getting 60% of the carries or 70% of the carries. He's a home run threat. So my 2 guys here are going to be Breece Hall and Kyren Williams. As much as I hate to sit Kenneth Walker, I really love your situation here. I actually might have sit Jacobs in this case, but you've got like 5 great options for running backs, and that's just awesome. But for me, today it's Breece Hall and Kyren Williams.
All right, Bobby.
Holy cow, man. You know what's funny? Like Breece Hall consensus RB2 for me. I was not even wavering on that. You're not sitting him even against San Francisco. It is what it is. Kyren was my guy pretty much all off season. I would not say sitting him. I am a little curious to see what the Blake Corum situation is going to be and how that split works, but I cannot in that Lions game. It's just going to be points galore. I can't sit him either. My only thought here really is if you're basing it on a total roster with Jacobs, Walker, Breece Hall, and Kyren, even with Jerome Ford as a rock solid RB5 and you're on your roster, looking at your wide receivers, I honestly might even consider trying to trade one of those running backs and beef up a little bit, maybe one of my wide receivers. Because, I'm not a DJ Moore guy. Tank Dell, we're all kind of a little concerned with the workload maybe after week 1. I would even probably consider unloading a running back if they all play well this week, even Jacobs or whoever, and trying to beef up that receiving core, maybe like trying to stack a Ridley and Jacobs to get a huge upgrade or something.
Oh, yeah. You could, with some of those running backs, you could come back with a pretty good wide receiver 1.
Yeah, and I don't remember all the bye weeks off the top of my head, but if one or 2 of these guys share a bye week, then
Jacobs and Walker are both out week 10, and I think Ford is too.
Yeah, so that would be I would look to move one of those and kind of alleviate that pending issue that you're going to have later in the season and get a wide receiver in there. Yeah. So to me, 2 of these running backs are in my top 8 this week, and that's Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. So I'm actually going to pass on, as much as I like Kyren Williams, I'm going to pass on him this week.
Woo!
And I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall.
Man.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker, I'm really high on him this week. I like the situation. I like that game script for him. I like him. I've got an anytime touchdown prop going for him. Give me Kenneth Walker all day today, and then of course I can't move out of Breece Hall, and he's probably your first round pick. You're not doing that either. So Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker for me.
Yeah, I will say this. Yeah, I would say Kenneth Walker, absolute stud. I love every second of it. I had him as a 3rd round pick this year. This one hurt. And when hearing Derek talk about Kenneth Walker, it was like he was talking about like my ex-girlfriend, and I was like, oh man, I miss her so much. So I'm not happy about sitting Walker at all.
I mean, what on the Rams defense is going? It tells you that they're going to be able to stop Kenneth Walker.
They're not playing the Rams; they're playing Denver.
I'm sorry, Denver. That's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I've got I still have my head on that other game too. But
I mean, from that point of view, again, you've got an embarrassment of riches here. I mean, it's
for sure.
I'm not going to fault you for starting Kenneth Walker over Kyren Williams. I just like Kyren Williams a little bit better in a track meet of a football.
Yeah, and honestly, going back a couple days and not to, put into the equation what Jacobs did the other night, but he probably would have been my fourth pick in this scenario. I probably would have passed on.
100%, I would have started Walker over Jacobs.
Yeah, yeah. So I would have gone Hall, Williams, and Walker in this scenario of picking the top three. But Jacobs had a pretty good game. You're probably not going to get hurt by this, but yeah, take our advice. Look to move one of those players, one of those running backs. Maybe beef up one of your wide receivers and alleviate one of your buy situations that you're going to come up with later in the season. All right, moving on. Here's our old friend JETS. He's a frequent commenter on my articles, probably yours as well. Here just to say hi. Thanks for joining us. Give us a shout out. Appreciate you always being here. And if you've got a question, we're here for another 25 minutes to answer those. All right, next up, Paul. Do you go with the Jamar Today show? Jamar Chase or sticking with Debo? So it looks like Jamar Chase or Debo. Yeah, hold on. He's got some more here. Kind of got screwed with the games are played. So this is a separate question. All right. So let's start with here first. Jamar Chase or Debo? Let's take this head to head, assuming half PPR until we hear differently. What do you think between these two?
For me, it's going to be Debo this week. Chase almost any other time, but with all the shenanigans going around with his contract talks and him holding out, I'm going to go with Debo. I love Debo in week one when he's probably going to be at his strongest. I know the Jets are a tough defense, but I think I'm going with Samuel.
All right. Yeah. And before we get to you, Bobby, just now that I had a chance to read this, Paul was telling us that with the news of Chase and the uncertainty, he played Rashee Rice and Devonta Smith, and that's fair. I think I would have done the same thing, frankly, in your situation. So now because of that, you're deciding between Jamar and Debo. Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah, Debo for me. By the way, Debo's going to be an absolute workhorse the first couple weeks while Brandon Knight gets ramped back up too. And I think a lot of things that we forget is that Brock Purdy never had a full off season because the first one he was behind quarterbacks. The second one he had the hurt arm. This is his first time. Like, I think there's more upside. Purdy, we might not have seen his best play yet. So I'm big on Purdy this year. Give me Debo. You can play it safe here. Play it safe. See what Chase does. By the way, I think Dave brought it up the best. Like, the Patriots defense could be something serious. And with that offense, by the way, the Patriots are not going to be throwing the ball around the yard. That could be a very low scoring game. So I'm good with Debo as well.
Completely agree with that. I think it's going to be a big dose of Ramondre Stevenson today. I love him as a play.
I agree. But yeah, give me Debo with this one as well. You have the luxury to be able to sit Chase when you have a player like Debo to play in his place and not have a lot of trepidation by doing that. So yeah, give me Debo and go ahead and feel comfortable with that.
And I know Paul, you're leaning towards Chase. I don't hate the choice, but I'm still on Debo.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he's gonna expect him to get a little bit of groundwork as well. So that just kind of helps the decision.
I like Debo for the floor, and I like Debo for the ceiling in this case.
Yeah. All right, very good. A couple more questions here. Here's one, an internal question. Half PPR, flex position. We have 4, Chuba, Chase Brown. That's a name we haven't talked about yet. JSN or Javonte Williams. And I assume we're picking one of these or 2?
One
of these. All right, Dave, what do you think?
Okay, for me, I love Ford. I love Chuba. I love Chase Brown. And I love JSN. I don't love any of those guys more than I love Javonte Williams.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to say Javonte Williams as well, but we haven't talked about him yet. But Chase Brown is actually a player that I'm really eager to see what he does today, especially, we've talked a lot about the wide receiver situation, with then of course with Zach Moss and now Chase Brown. I think this boosts the prospects for Chase Brown. The fact that T. Higgins is out and Jamar may be limited, and we're not really sure what we're going to get from Iosava and others. So I like Chase Brown. I might again, if you're talking about a prop bet and you're looking for something to bet the over, Chase Brown might be a good pick there. But
Yeah.
in this situation for a flex, go with the sure thing or the most sure thing, and that's going to be Javonte Williams for me.
Okay. Sounds good. This is my question, so I'm not going to answer it.
Oh, we got one more for you. Let's just hit this one real quick, and then we'll move on. So that's full PPR in this case. All right, interesting. Palmer, Thielen, JSN, or Pollard? Interesting one here. What do you think, Dave?
For me, I love Thielen until maybe about week 7 or 8 when age starts catching up with him. But I think today, especially, he's going to have a decent volume day, especially if Lattimore shadows Deontay Johnson. So I'm going to take Thielen there, and the other guy I'm going to take is Pollard. The last guy, to me, Palmer is the easy elimination.
Yeah. So for me, it's actually the same too. Thielen, I'm really high on him as well. The Saints gave up the second most to the slot last year. And of course, we know that Thielen lives in the slot, and I like him early in the season as well. So I think he comes out strong. I'm all about Thielen today. And then the same, being it's a PPR and Pollard, they're going to share that workload, but Pollard's going to get the volume in both the rushing and some of in the passing game as well, I would suspect. So give me Pollard and Thielen as well. Does that help you, Bobby, or does it make it a little bit?
I don't know. I'm just tired of making decisions. I think I like the Thielen thing. I talked about him a bunch, just in the slot versus wide, but also the home versus road and the wins versus losses. Like, he checks almost every box this week. And I also, and Dave brought up a really good point earlier when he said I like Bryce Young this year. I think he's going to kind of bounce back, and I think this situation reminds me a little bit of what happened with Trevor Lawrence. Like, Trevor Lawrence's rookie season was a dumpster fire, and then Doug Peterson came in, stabilized him a little bit. Was he an all-pro? No, but I think he's going to be a competent NFL quarterback, which means that I think Deontay Johnson is going to benefit from the improved statistics without impacting Thielen so much. I do think Thielen, of course, takes a step back a little bit, but I think Bryce Young's going to play a lot better. There's going to be a lot more yards, a lot more touchdowns. So I think Thielen is underrated this year because we've seen Dave Canales feature 2 receivers everywhere. I mean, you go back to Seattle when he was QB coach, it was Metcalf and Lockett, and then he comes down to Tampa Bay, it was Godwin and also Mike Evans. And I could see Thielen have a Chris Godwin season. Is that an elite season? No, but it's a borderline. It's like a wide receiver 3 PPR season. So I agree there.
All right, so let's move on. Jets fan does have a question for us, and this is going to be an interesting one. Jamar Chase, and we talked about how he may be limited and all that, or Aaron Jones. And if you think that the Vikings Giants is going to be a 6-3 game, well, that maybe this makes this question an easy one for us. Jets fan, we had a discussion earlier. Someone suggested that the Vikings Giants may end up as a 6-3 ball game. And if that's the case, then we want to stay away from Aaron Jones. But I don't think any of us really thought that was realistic. So, Dave, what do you think? Are you sitting Chase for Aaron Jones at the flex?
As counterintuitive as sitting Chase is, this week I'm willing to do it for a guy that I think is going to have a pretty good game. And Aaron Jones fits that. I think Aaron Jones is probably going to do quite a bit today. It's week 1. I love Aaron Jones coming out of the gate healthy. I know he doesn't usually stay that way. So if there's a week that I'm going to sit Jamar Chase for Aaron Jones, it's this week.
All right, Bobby.
Yeah, the Giants defense is under a new defensive coordinator, the former Titans DC. I don't even know what that really means. The Titans have always been good at stopping the run. They haven't been great stopping the pass under that kind of coaching staff, but The Giants were nearly top 10. I think they were 11th in fantasy points allowed in PPR to running backs last year. So the Chase situation to me is like, honestly, like, how much do we really know? Like, this guy didn't technically really practice until a couple days ago. I mean, he wasn't really doing anything. So I can't imagine he's just going to get a full workload, and then you got to factor in all the other stuff going on. So with a tough match, I think I agree. I'm going to go Aaron Jones.
Yeah, same for me. It's all about volume. Volume.
We didn't even know for sure Chase was playing until this morning.
Yeah, but when it comes down to it, it's going to be volume. Going into week 1 and everything that we know, and there's probably more we don't know than what we know going into week 1. But what we suspect is going to be volume, and which one has more volume play, and that's going to be Aaron Jones.
Not only that, I think the Vikings, they may like Sam Darnold, but if they're going to get a game where they can avoid putting the game in his hands, I think they're going to take it.
The other thing, too, can we just make one? This is the Jamar Chase rule. If you have another player that's good and has a good matchup, play that player. Don't start a shitty player just to start him over Chase. We're not saying that. But if you have a good player, Aaron Jones is a good player in a good matchup. The Giants are not some imposing defense. It's not like they're facing like the number 1 rush defense in football. So I think that makes that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah, 100%. We haven't seen start Jamar Chase or Joshua Palmer question yet. So, most of the Chase questions have come up against guys that have ceilings.
Yeah, for sure. All right, folks, we got about 12 minutes till roster lock. We got a few more. We can take for a few more questions, but let's go to Marius now. He's back with a quarterback question. Wow, Purdy, Jaden, or Stafford?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm going to probably in this case, I'm going to start Stafford in the track meet. I think there's a possibility of a explosive game against his former team. I love Jaden Daniels, but I'm not willing to pin all my hopes on him yet. And to me, for Purdy, he's got to be extremely efficient to be extremely effective. And I don't like his matchup against the Jets that much this week. So for me, it's Stafford here. Later in the season, other games, he's probably the third choice.
Yeah, I'm gonna just jump in here and say I agree. I've got Stafford rated as my 13th ranked quarterback. Daniels at 15 and Purdy at 20 for very much the reasons that you just said, Dave. That Lions-Rams game is projected to be the highest scoring at 52.5 points. He's got a healthy wide receiver core. He's got a couple of running backs that can complement very well. Both of them could be active in the passing game as well. So give me Stafford going against his.
Nobody's asked a question about the Rams receivers, but with both Puka and Kupp healthy, that team is scary. It really is on offense.
And their defense is terrible, or potentially. So it's that just boosts the argument in favor of Stafford to me.
Yeah, I said it on another broadcast early in the week. 42-40 games are good for fantasy.
Yes, they are. What do you think, Bobby? Are you agreeing with us? Or are you going a different way?
Yeah, I actually, it's funny. I think Stafford's the play, right? Purdy, by the way, last year at home is like he was really his home splits last year. He averaged about 2 more fantasy points at home last year. That's really where he breads his butter, but it's against the Jets. So I don't think you should pass. I think this Stafford, by the way, I think this is Stafford's first game in Detroit. Is that correct? Or they played last year in Detroit?
Played last year in Detroit.
Last year in Detroit, yeah, okay. So I'm going to go Stafford. I think the matchup's too good. I think that game's going to be a track meet. I'm good with Stafford.
Yeah, that's a great game for Sunday night football.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, all the highlighted games have been very good this week. So
it's hard to be worse than last year's game 1 for Sunday night football between the Giants and the Cowboys.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, so that gives us all, or answers all our questions in the chat. We got 10 more minutes. So if you're still out there and you've got a last minute question, go ahead and jump in and we'll answer that for you.
Yeah, we'll give it another 60 seconds, Derek. We got things to do, folks. I gotta go set up my section. I got to put my quad box up. I got my multiple screens. I'm ready to rock and roll for the first week. We'll give another minute, but before we close the show, let's kind of revisit some of the stuff we talked about earlier. Final thoughts about week one. Let's go to you, Derek, first. Like, what are your kind of thoughts here? Any final things after kind of answering a bunch of start sit questions and going through the first Sunday live show? What's your final thoughts about week one, things to watch?
Javonte Williams is going to be an all-pro, and
Jesus.
yeah,
I love it.
And ride Adam Thielen until the wheels fall off. No, but yeah, a lot of good questions. A lot of wide receiver or flex type questions. Wide receiver 3 or flex questions, and that's what we love to talk about. Some great matchups this week. Again, a lot of the I think the questions that we have coming into the season after draft season, with running backs and wide receivers and playing time and targets, those things are going to start getting answered, and we'll have a little bit more of an idea of how these teams are going to these coaches are in new positions, players are in new positions, and how are these teams going to start game planning moving forward. So we're going to get a little peek in that today. I'm looking forward to it, and let's win our matchups.
Dave?
Yep, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to football getting rolling again. Also looking forward to some of the stats getting rolling in to see what we're actually going to see versus what we think we're going to see. One of the things that I really have an eye on that probably nobody else does is in Las Vegas. One of the guys that Gardner Minshew's been talking up a lot this year so far is Michael Mayer. And Brock Bowers hasn't played a lot yet. He's a rookie. Tight end is a tough spot for a rookie. And Minshew thrives in 2 tight end formations. So I'm looking for the Raiders to play a lot of 2 tight ends. I think Minshew likes Michael Mayer a lot, and I've really got my eye on him today.
That shatters a lot of people's dreams. I saw a lot of Brock Bowers early this year. I've not seen any Michael Mayer being drafted, but a post-hype sleeper, I guess, that's going to be a tough one to swallow for everybody. But I agree. Rookie tight ends does take time. I mean, even with Kincaid last year. I mean, Sam Laporta broke everyone's mind. I mean, I think a lot of people had Kincaid as the guy, not Laporta. I know a lot of people like Laporta, and I have him in Dynasty, and I liked him for Dynasty. But it was Kincaid. Everybody was like, Kincaid's going to break the slate. I think this year Kincaid will be the guy. I think Kincaid will take over as the elite tight end this year.
He'll be the top receiver in Buffalo this year.
Yeah. I think it's not ranked that way. I did move him ahead of Mark Andrews. And by the way, before week one, so my final rankings, because I was like, I just want more Kincaid in my lineup. So I got him in a couple leagues. But I think if Kincaid was a wide receiver and Stephon Diggs left and then Gabe Davis left and he was a wide receiver, we would be going crazy for a first-round receiver who produced like he did last year this year. I think the irony is that since he's a tight end, I think he got kind of overlooked a little bit in the sense of could he actually – like why can't he be the tight end one more than we have thought about it? So I think he produced well in the role he had last year. Another year in the system. Joe Brady's there as well. A lot of success with tight ends for Joe Brady. So I think there's something there too. So, all right, that's all we got today, folks. It looks like we got no more questions. We got 5 minutes until kickoff. I want to thank Derek Favret. By the way, you can follow him at Derek_Favret. Dave Cruz, welcome to the squad. Dave will be dropping his first article next week for Razzball, so be on the lookout for that. He'll be breaking down the wins versus losses tool and letting you know how to use that and help yourself with fantasy as well. Once again, I'm your host, Bobby. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
I promise I'll use that more than I used it today.
That's all right. Yeah, no, it's fine. We didn't expect that. It's all good. But the best part, too, is when you're diving into your articles, you'll actually bring it to the show and you'll be talking about it. So trust me, there'll be plenty of time for you to break down some of the win versus losses data. I love every second of that. All right. Once again, thanks for joining us once again, folks. This was the Sunday Live Start Sit Show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, like, review, give us a comment, and make sure you follow us all week long. We're going to have a Tuesday show every week, Waiver Wire, and also takeaways. Wednesday, me and Derek will be on breaking down the split tools, and then Thursday, we have starts of the week. We have B-Don coming on with Rudy, who does all our projections. And then Friday, of course, we'll have the slot versus wide. So make sure you join us all week long. We'll have basically stuff every single day. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us again. And thank you for joining the Sunday Live Show. Enjoy week 1, folks. We are at it.